Good morning and welcome to Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African News Network, TOS Television. My name is Merciful Ajinamo. On the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, we see El-Rufai seeks help as bandits kill 1,192, kidnap 3,348 in Kaduna. Underneath that headline, we see a couple of riders. The first one says 9 persons kidnapped daily in 2021. Northwest needs a military theater command to tackle banditry, says governor. And Khan calls for El-Rufai's resignation, says report self-indicting. Of course, that story is continued on page 2 of The Guardian. And just underneath that story, we see on page 2 as well, ignore governor's pressure, sign Electoral Act now. PDP lawmakers urge Buhari, and that's coming on page 2 of The Guardian as well. On page 29, we see police rescue 113 teens from illegal rehabilitation home NAB operators. That's on page 29 of The Guardian. And besides the picture of the day there, we see on page 3, Falana warns of more coups in West Africa as heavy gunfire rocks government palace in Guinea-Bissau. Of course, that's on page 3. And on page 4, Buhari moves against AIDS, HIV with 62.1 billion naira trust fund. And then on page 7, we see Igbo presidency will end agitations, ensure peace, say Ohaneze and Nobodo. And that's coming on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. On page 29, gunmen kill ex-administrator, abduct over 50 persons in Kaduna, Katsina. And that's it for the Guardian newspaper. On the Punch, we have the banner headline there says, marketers labor won as federal government pushes refineries repairs to Buhari's successor. That's on page 2. The first rider says, no subsidy removal until refineries are working on the next government. That's coming from Silver. And then without repairing refineries, fuel price hike imminent, say marketers fault policies. From the very top, we see 6.6 million Nigerians become MTN shareholders. Telco rakes in 111.75 billion naira on page 19. And on page 9, Buhari mandates Gambari Ngige Adamu to resolve ASU crisis, begs lecturers. On page 12, Wike dodges questions on presidential ambition, says windows still open. And then on page 17, oil revenue plunges as Nigeria misses January OPEC quota. Still on the Punch, on page 9, Prof awarded son at 90 dies in UCH at 91. I'll take that again. On page 9, Prof awarded son at 90 dies in UCH at 91. And then on page 11, Kaduna lists 1,192 killed in 2021. El-Rufai insists terrorists must die. That's on page 11. And on page 8, Obasanjo fumes over fire in Benue farm. Otoms, others probe. Obasanjo fumes over fire in Benue farm, and Otom, others probe. That's on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Still on the page 8, we see U.S. resumes no interview process for Nigerians seeking visa renewal. And then on page 4, kidnap epidemic, gunmen abduct ex-local government chair, 4 others in Ekiti State. On page 8, reps recommend 390 million naira compensation for customs killings in Oyo, Katsina. And that's it for the Punch newspaper. And then we move over to Nigerian Tribune. Of course, from the very top there, we see court dismisses suit on elevation of Ibadan High Chiefs, clears way for Olubadan installation. That's on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. On page 28, cool fever spreads to Guinea-Bissau as gunfire erupts near presidential palace. And then on page 5, reps ask customs to pay 390 million naira compensation to victims in Oyo, Katsina State. The banner headline there is Clark to Atiku, Saraki, Tambuwal, don't run. Of course, we have the riders underneath the story, which comes on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. The first rider says, North has ruled for 45 out of Nigeria's 61 years of independence. He says, and then Atiku says, I will make my intention known soon. That's on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Beside the picture of the day, banditry, 1,192 killed in Kaduna in 2021. That's a report, 1,192 people killed in Kaduna in 2021. That's on page 16. And talking about insurgency, Borno government declares over 100,000 persons missing. That's on page 16. On page 27, government abduct farm owner, 9 workers in Ondo. That's on page 27. And Buhari says, I will honor agreements with ASU. We can get our story on page 28 and on page 29. Ritual killings. Ifa doesn't support use of human parts for wealth. That's coming from traditional worshippers. Now we move to the last newspaper, and from the banner headline there we see, Wike, North can't stop South from getting PDP ticket. The writer says, Clark, Buhari's successor should come from South. That story is continued on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Still on the page 4 of the Nation newspaper, we see analysts say, will PDP implode over 2023 presidential ticket? That's on page 4 of the Nation. And then you see US begins no interview for visa renewal in Nigeria. That's still on the Nation newspaper from the very top, page 27. Dismissal of Sweet clears way for Balogun as Olubadan. And of course, that's on page 27 of the Nation newspaper. And then besides that, on page 7 as well, 50,000 barrels of crude lost to all thieves daily. And Elumelu, the writer says, Elumelu, $4 billion wasted. And then just besides that, still on page 7, we see MTN Nigeria's offer oversubscribed by 38 billion naira. MTN Nigeria's offer oversubscribed by 38 billion naira. That's on page 7. On page 3, gunmen kidnapped 10 farmers in Ondo, 5 in Ekiti. We see an article right there, how to end banditry, killings by Erufai. Of course, the writer says 1,192 killed, 3,348 kidnapped in Kaduna last year. Insurgents killed 3 soldiers, 8 others in Niger. That story continues on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Then besides that, Forex turnover at official window dropped from $4.44 billion to $2.18 billion. The writer says Naira appreciate 415 Naira per dollar at official market. We can get our story on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Then just underneath that we see why I divorced Atiku by ex-wife. That's on page 6. And Nigerian student died of cold in Ukraine. That's on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. And just underneath the paper right there, we see Autumn orders probe into Obasanjo farm fire. That's on page 6. Then attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. That's on page 27 of the Nation newspaper. Just make sure you grab yourself a copy of any of these newspapers so you can stay updated on happenings in Nigeria. And also do not forget you can stay updated on happenings in Nigeria and Africa at our website. That is www.tostvnetwork.com. And our social media platforms are right there for you to follow and stay engaged. That is at TOSTV on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And don't forget to also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you do not miss out on amazing content we have for you each day. Thank you so much for joining us on Nigeria Now. See you tomorrow.